The Gothic Art Movement by Ashley Canty. Times and influences. The Gothic art period took place in Europe between the 12th and 16th century. The Gothic movement mostly influenced architecture, but it also brought significant changes to sculpture and painting. The Gothic art movement was tied to literature back in the day, but has now moved towards music in the 20th century. But back in the day it was related to literature. Surrounding movements. The Gothic style was intended to replace the Romanesque style of architecture. Romanesque architecture created space by adding bays unit by unit. The ancient and classical art came, then Gothic along with Renaissance art following it. Gothic architecture. Gothic architecture was created as an entire space that was then subdivided into units. The Gothic style of architecture was an immediate success, and by 1250, the Gothic movement spread to the rest of Europe. Gothic architecture was seen mostly in cathedrals. Different regions of Europe created their own variations by the Gothic style, was typified by the constructional devices like flying buttresses, red vaults, and pointed arches. Architects made cathedral walls thinner, allowing stained glass windows to be installed instead of mosaics. Some of the best examples of Gothic architecture can be seen at cathedrals of Amiens, Reims, and Chartres. Gothic sculpture. Gothic sculpture was created to decorate the entrances of cathedrals. The subjects of the sculptures were usually figures from the Old Testament. Some of the best examples of Gothic sculpture can be seen at the cathedrals of St. Denis and Chartres. Later in the Gothic art movement, sculptures developed a freer style, inspired by the Roman and Greek art. Gothic paintings. Painting in the Gothic period was inspired by the design and color of stained glass windows. Many Gothic painters favored bright reds and blues, typical of stained glass. Painters were also commissioned to decorate manuscripts, copies of the Bible, and prayer books for the churches. In the 1400s, Gothic painters began to create oil paintings in Flanders. Important. Yes. The principal structural characteristics of the Gothic architecture arose out of the medieval masons' effort to solve the problems associated with supporting heavy masonry ceiling vaults over wide spans. The problem was that the heavy stonework of the traditional arch or vault and the growing vault exerted a tremendous downward and outward pressure that tended to push the walls upon which the vault rested outward, thus collapsing them. A building's vertical supporting walls thus had to be made extremely thick and heavy in order to contain the bill's vault outward. This is Niccolo Pisano. He is viewed on the left, and one of his sculptures, are on the right. He mastered in oil paintings. This is Fra Guglielmo. He is on the left, and one of his sculptures on the right. He specializes with marble, and terracotta. Lastly is John van Eyck. He's on the left, and his famous painting of himself and his pregnant wife, or of someone, and a pregnant wife and a dog, is on the right. He perfected Gothic art using oil paints. My feelings toward the art. I actually do not like this movement at all. It is very crude and simply sad. They do not use many colors and very many happy creatures, including humans. Everything is very melancholy and monotone. I'm a more upbeat person, and this art to me is a downer, but incredible and fascinating at the same time. It is not just a piece of art I would choose to display in my home. The end. And thank you for listening.